One of the greatest evils any society or nation can involve themselves in is sending their women and children to war. Any moral nation, once it gets to the point of sending our beloved women and children into a combat dangerous zone, any moral society surrenders at that point. They start working on negotiations to get out of that conflict because at that point, you're just losing. When you start to send your women and children, it means you're out of manpower. However, times are starting to change. Through media propaganda, the government has convinced us it's okay to send women into war. It's okay to use them as just extra manpower, more people to throw at the enemy. That is what is being decided in the modern day. And that has been convinced to the public through the use of Hollywood movies, books, stories, that sort of thing. Of course, government has always used these different media sources as a propaganda tool to convince the masses of something that may not be accepted widely, but you slowly incorporate it into media over time, and it will eventually become normalized if done properly. And that's what we're seeing. We are seeing women being made out to be soldiers in film. We are shown that, oh, they can keep up with men. In fact, they might be better soldiers than men. And I'm not saying this in some kind of sexist anti woman rant. Quite the opposite, actually. I believe that men should be taking care of women, that we should be putting our lives on the line so that our women and children of our nation can live safely and freely. We should be providing and protecting for them because that is our God given role. So, women, obviously, they aren't built like men. There isn't there isn't the same ability for combat within women as there is in men. And being thrown into combat situations has significantly worse effects on women than it does the men involved themselves. Excuse me there, I coughed for a second. Still getting over a little sickness. But first of all, I want to go into the marriage statistics, right? Because women, right, we want them getting married, we want them having kids. The only way a society can continue on is if there is obviously reproduction. That way, not only the people of the society doesn't die off, but the culture as well, right? As a society's culture starts to dissipate, the country itself ceases to exist. So you need your people to be reproducing, bringing the traditions onto the future generations. However, when you have female soldiers, all of a sudden, marriage, it goes out of the door. So only 46.2% of female soldiers are actually married. Only 12% of active duty female soldiers are married. Women with civilian husbands are significantly worse as in odds of the marriage continuing on than the reversal when a man is married to a civilian woman. Men being married to civilian women, obviously military makes all marriage harder, but there is actually a somewhat decent chance of that marriage being a success. Almost none when the woman is a military and the man is civilian. The odds of the female getting divorced as a military member is 2 times the odds of the male getting divorced, with the female divorce rate at 7% and the male at 2.5%. Marriage does not work for women in the military at all. So, when you start sending your women into war, all of a sudden you lose an entire group of people to be reproducing. But at the same time, it also isn't even creating a real benefit for your country. Having women in the military is only throwing manpower at the problem. That's the only benefit you have. Women do not fit in a military area. You have a higher injury rate, right? Because their bodies are not designed to be able to go through the rigorous military training, the preparation, and combat itself. Their bodies just can't take the complete overload. So you have a higher injury rate costing the people of the nation more money. They are emotional, right? Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a good thing. However, you don't want very, very emotional people in the military. They have a slower decision-making rate. Obviously, military, you need to be able to make quick decisions and you have to make crucial decisions in a very timely manner. And if you leave those decisions skeptical at all, you can get countless people killed. Another thing is you do have some level of sexism, right? I mean, on both sides, men and women, you throw them together, You have the chance of creating differences in the military, creating more conflict due to some kind of sexist principle. You don't want to have even the opportunity to be creating a pointless conflict within some kind of battalion. You have somewhat of a death of brotherhood. You start throwing women in a with a group of guys, the guys start competing over her. That's what you have going on there. So it's going to tear apart some of the brotherly bonds that you create in the military that create a strong fighting force when you start adding women into that equation. Also, a lot of these women, they are seeking male attention. They may not be joining the military solely for male attention, but when they are there, they are going to be seeking for it. And again, that plays under the death of brotherhood. They want to break up these brotherships for that attention. That way they're getting it and, not the other guys. They are just physically weaker. Also, that one's pretty obvious, straightforward. Mentally vulnerable, again, with the emotional thing. You can play off of women, you can play off their emotions in order to get the decision or outcome you want. And another thing that you just do not want going on in your military. A giant one here is you have the opportunity for pregnancy with females in the military, right? A woman gets pregnant, all of a sudden the government, the taxpayers are responsible of taking care of her, taking care of her child. All of a sudden she is not combat fit in the slightest. Massive, massive risk you're taking with women in the military there. Childcare, right? These women aren't getting to take care of their children because they are, you know, likely going around the world because that's what you're stuck doing in the military. So all of a sudden, we have to figure out a childcare system to support the kids of these women who are leaving them to go overseas and such. Finally, as I already went over, marriage statistics do not look good for women, even worse than men in the military, which are already pretty bad. So, yeah, those are all the reasons we don't want women in the military. Yet it's still being pushed by Hollywood, right? I want to look at different movies, such as the Terminator franchise, not specifically the first one. I don't think Sarah Connor really plays much of like a military role, more of just like, strong woman role. After that, though, she seems to get more militaristic. I haven't seen much of all the other movies, though, so I could be wrong there. Star Wars, the new ones, right? Actively putting women in different combat situations. That wasn't really something you saw in the first three. You saw maybe a little bit of it with like Princess Leia, I guess, but she was never like a combat role. She just, you know, got taken by hostage by the enemy as like a politician of such. Marvel movies, you have characters like Black Widow. They're trying to make these female superheroes, and they're like, hey, look how kick-ass they are. They can keep up with all the men. A little bit of brainwashing there. Birds of Prey and other DC franchise movies. All superhero stuff at this point. I've just come to the conclusion most of this superhero stuff is kind of gay. They put women into combat all the time, and it's just evil. Most superhero stuff probably has that propaganda element in it. Hunger Games franchises, kind of straightforward, I think. You throw a woman into a giant pit of different teenagers, and all of a sudden she's beating up on all the boys because she's a great soldier or such. Again, not even saying these are bad movies, but the propaganda is clearly there. The new Ghostbusters movie, not new, I guess, anymore. I think it was like 2016, 2017, but it was absolutely awful for one, and it just has like a bunch of like fat lesbian girls. I guess there's one fat one, but a bunch of like lesbians and such just going out and oh look, they're saving the city and they're uniforms, quite frankly, uniforms, guns, and all that. They're trying to pump at you full of the idea that women can keep up in combat and that it can be completely healthy, which is just completely untrue. Terrible, terrible for a nation. Not something we want going on. So yeah, don't let this media fool you. Do not let this propaganda hit you. You need to recognize it, and we need to start fighting back against the notion that women should be in our military because we do not want to be sending our women and eventually what will happen is our children to die in wars, especially the wars that our government gets us in because a lot of those are forever wars that aren't actually in our own interest. Let's end women in military roles, to be completely honest. Maybe you can put them into like an engineering role or something, but they should never ever be anything combat related. That's just the truth. You don't want them on the field at all. I don't want them as in leadership roles. I don't want them on the lower ranks. I don't want them on the field. I do not want them in any combat involved position. The only thing that really should be going on is, creating supplies, working on supply chains. And that's the furthest I'm willing to go because I don't want women getting killed and getting others killed due to, different emotional and physical limitations. And I guess I want to be careful saying limitations because on the emotional end, I mean, not a limitation. It's good for society. You need to have people with that point of view, and men and women are important. Both emotionally and physically. Both are important, but not in the military. You don't want women in the combat roles. And I think that's pretty straightforward. And if you want me to get deeper into this, reach out, comment. I will respond to pretty much anything, unless it's just like a straight up attack. And if you want to do that, go for it. I don't know, laugh at you, I guess. It really hurts, actually. Do comment that because it really hurts me and it doesn't help me in the algorithm at all. But yeah, on that note, I'm going to head out. So if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, share it. Go check out my Twitter. Rumble, Discord, all in the link in the description. You can connect with me and other fans alike. So yeah, there's that. But like I said, I'm heading off. So long. Peace out and God bless y'all.